we're just now making the stage set for our next session, which is going to be talking about maximizing revenues. And I'm delighted to bring up to the stage Christopher Lund, who heads up the hotel division for Colliers here in the region. Christopher, please come and join the stage and
Thank you very much.
introduce your panel. Thanks so much.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So I'm very lucky to be to have with me in the panel 4 great people from the F&B industry, spa industry, an owner and an operator as well, and innovators. So I would like to invite the panel up on the stage. Kerten, hospitality, we have Marloes, the CEO. We have Anil from Moosa Enterprises, Kathryn from Wellness Awards, and Naim Maadad, the F&B expert, really. One thing I want to start on before I attack the panel here with questions is something I noticed, which is the slight name change in the conference this year. It used to be a hotel investment conference, but this year it's actually a hospitality investment conference. And I think that says a lot, and that shows the evolution of where the industry is going as well. Because it's no longer just about the tourists in a hotel room, but it's about building a collection of hospitality experiences within a hotel. You know, whether it's the food and beverage, the wellness, the co-working spaces, which obviously are very popular these days as well. And I think there's a phrase that was used even 10 years ago, which was live, work, play in the hotel, right? But back then it meant something completely different. Back then it was live, work, play within the hotel room. You had the desk that maybe could swivel around so you could see the TV while working. It was very different. Now it's about the whole property itself. You can live, work, and play in the property. And that's what we saw during COVID as well. People were living in hotels, people were working in hotels, hotel rooms were transformed into office spaces, and of course, staying in the hotels as tourists did as well. So I want to start maybe with Marloes. You know, you are at the forefront of this in terms of, you know, being an operator, putting all these experiences together. So I want to try to understand, how does the ideal city hotel look like for you? And what are all the pieces that come together, and how do they work together instead of being separate silos? How do they all come together?
It's perfect to ask me a question about standards. We have none. I think there is, you know, the perfect scenario doesn't necessarily exist. I think what's really important is that every single project and location is so different. So what we're saying is the walls of the building stop 200 meters away from the actual physical wall. And so when we talk about communities, or we talk about how to bring people together, or how to collaborate with brands, we just really look at where are we, what's around us, what's the competition looking like, and what are people doing to order. And I give you just a stupid example, is when you stay in a hotel and with everybody who's been traveling and quarantining in hotels, you see all of these Uber guys coming in, or Kareem guys coming in into the lobby, and then by 11 o'clock at night you see all of these paper bags over all of the floors, and you still see them in the morning. Now, if I know that nobody wants my burger or my Caesar salad or anything else, there's 2 things I can do. Is one, I can just say, okay, we'll just carry up this stuff and just ignore it, or just say, why don't I make it easier for the guest and offer that as a service? And you know, it's the same. We just we're opening the Jeddah House Hotel, thankfully, tomorrow, and there we have 14 restaurants around us, and none of them are big brands. They're all local or GCC brands, but all very well known. It would be quite ridiculous if we wouldn't be supporting them to be serving into our hotel, if we would go out and buy chocolates or dates from somewhere else instead of actually walking in and talking to those owners. And so what we're saying is, to create a B2C experience, you need to create really good B2B relationships. And you know, the 10% of this and the 5% of this and the space planning, I think we're the worst operator to have these conversations with.
And do you believe, to make this whole thing work, successfully together, does it have to be managed by one operator, or is it a collection of different operators, different brands that come together?
I think you can do both, and it really depends on the space. So, for example, our breakfast restaurant is Baker and Spice. Very simple. It's a great brand. It's a kind of breakfast experience that you would like to have every day, but you're only doing it one day a week. But you need to be very conscious that there should be somebody bringing everybody together. So just the physical space, the physical brands, and the physical contracts is not good enough. How does collaboration look like? It means that everybody needs to sit around the table and set out some playing rules of how that's working and who takes the overall responsibility. And it can look like in very different ways, obviously. But you know, when people talk to us, for example, about mixed use, they always say, oh yeah, but we have mixed use because we have a building with 4 components. Yeah, it's just that the guest still needs to log into the Wi-Fi 4 times, can't charge anything to anywhere, and there's no guest experience. It's not mixed use. That's a physical mixed use environment. That's not a mixed use experience from a guest perspective.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And Anil, as an owner, just following up on those learnings, you obviously pioneered the service apartment concept in Dubai a while ago. Does every property need to have all these components together, or can a property be successful in a particular location just with rooms, nothing else?
Well, Christopher, COVID has certainly brought a lot of things into perspective. Okay, I'm an owner. Revenue maximization is the key word here, okay? We are lucky enough to have properties in Dubai, 15 of them, spread from beaches to right in the middle of town, some very prime, Sheikh Zayed Road, right across an exhibition hall, and Jumeirah Beach, and we are about to open 3 monstrous, luxurious properties on the 8th wonder of the world in the next 3 months, which is the Jumeirah Palm. So the theme of this particular discussion is so relevant to what we are going through right now. COVID certainly taught us that the room side of the income literally went to zero some stage, close to zero. It used to be the bread and butter, and if it hadn't been for a lot of the other pieces, it would have been very, very difficult. Specifically, the city hotels obviously did not benefit as much as the beach properties did, because the staycation vacation took off, and staycations generally prefer the bigger leisure element with the beach and other things that go with it, and it clearly showed in the numbers. Dubai is in some ways unique. I mean, what we're talking about today, frankly, is relevant only to the Dubai scenario. I do not think these comments would be valid for downtown Manhattan, where it's a different story altogether. F&Bs are, generally speaking, a very large component of every hotel here in town. We have close to 50 F&B outlets in our property, so it's a very large inventory too. It was interesting that during this conference, you also come to know, as their students from the various hotel schools yesterday, and they were giving their vision about 2050, and they talked about the wellness angle, which is a part of this discussion today, and some of them were talking about bringing aspects of the medical profession actually into integrating that with other services that a hotel provides. Can the spa, for example, be extended to giving other services? And we actually have started looking at that angle already, okay? The value addition of bringing some of those wellness services to the spa part of the operation, the numbers completely change the picture. So, there is a lot of things that I think this industry is going to evolve, and COVID has certainly given us thought that we need to be careful, certainly in this part of the region, not to be too necessarily dependent on the room side. So,
Yeah.
you know.
It's interesting, the wellness side of things that you're mentioning there, and luckily we have Kathryn as well with us. Obviously, 2020 was a very tough year. We saw a drop, closure of a lot of spas because it is a very high-touch industry. We've seen most of the spas opening up again now. What are you seeing in terms of trends that are changing from an owner, operator, brand point of view?
Okay,
side.
so good question, Christopher. Again, when you come to these kind of conferences and you really meet, and I must thank Jonathan for putting some of these ideas, frankly, in these conferences. You come to see so many specialists, okay, people who are looking at new tech things, etc., new ideas. Some of them, frankly, some of them are completely outlandish when you hear them first. But when you think about it a little more, it will happen. Specifically on your question, we are increasingly realizing that you need to bring the specialists at times to sit along with this big international operator, because no matter what, they will not be as nimble as these specialists are. So whether it is an F&B operation where you might decide, well, let's also bring in a franchise, okay, who will have certain skill sets, not only in the menu creation, but even in the sales and marketing, frankly. Some of the local generated F&B, we've realized, and we've brought in a lot of them into our properties, and we've seen the difference. When you have a spa come medical kind of operation, and when one is thinking about that, then you certainly need to bring in the specialist on the medical side to help with the spa operation, etc. So I think the whole business model is so evolving now that it's going to see a lot of changes. It's going to happen.
Kathryn, are you seeing the same
I
things
love
from
it
other
that,
owners as?
I love
me?
it that he's actually speaking my language. It's very hard to sometimes get owners to understand the importance of bringing in outside expertise. We're really seeing a change now. I think over the last few years, operations in spa and wellness were brought in-house. Hotels wanted to do it themselves. And I think now they're seeing that wellness, it's so prevalent because of COVID. It obviously was prior to COVID, but people are really looking to their own well-being now and seeing that they could go to a hotel to have these sorts of services. So when a hotel now wants to offer something that's authentic, they really need to look to the experts to be able to offer it.
Okay, what kind of deals are you seeing these days in terms of, I'm assuming it's typically not the straight lease like a shop would be. What kind of deals are we seeing in that
There's
space?
varying deals at the moment. Some are revenue shares, some look like a standard hotel management agreement, so a percentage of revenue, percentage of profit, all expenses going to the hotel. It really depends on who's doing the fit out, the extent of the fit out. If we're talking about full-on wellness, where we're talking medical, really expensive technology, usually both parties may invest. It just depends on the direction of the hotel. What I'm seeing now, and it's really important, is that the hotel from the top has a strategy for wellness and spa. So they understand the mandate of what their hotels are going to be offering across the board, and then that is trickled down. If a GM doesn't know what they need to offer, if they don't have those brand pillars internally, and then understand, the expertise that's needed, a head count is going to be much higher, offering a full-on wellness experience. If they don't know these sorts of things, or they know that the margins, we talked yesterday about ROI, the ROI on a full-blown wellness experience is going to take a lot longer than, say, just operating a standard hotel spa. So there needs to be that understanding of what they're investing in and what the essential return will be. But I think, we've all seen staycations. Why are we not doing more wellness staycations? There's massive opportunity there to be able to bring in the UAE population to all of our hotels.
And Do you see a lot of owners that maybe have tried to operate the spa themselves without a specialized spa operator that then have failed and come to you after they fail? Or do you see they typically already think of it in the development stage?
Actually, now it's owners that are asking the hotel operator to get third-party assistance because they're not happy with the level of expertise that the hotels could offer. So the hotels, for example, during COVID, have removed their spa departments from a corporate level because of COVID, obviously, reducing expenses and so forth. They're now saying, listen, we can see the consumers want wellness. We can see there's opportunity. As a hotel group, what are you doing to be able to bring more business into my hotel? And the hoteliers are then turning around saying, okay, we don't have that expertise. We'll need to bring in someone external.
Yeah, thank you. On the F&B side, Anil was mentioning that F&B in some of their hotels is a very big proportion of the revenues. And I'm sure with COVID, we've seen perhaps that split in revenues change as well slightly. How have you seen COVID change that dynamic between the rooms and the food and beverage?
Look, I think what COVID has done, actually, it's accelerated the change. We were going in that direction. I think people are starting to look at various disciplines within the hotel business and seeing what are the revenue streams, be it the wellness, be it the food and beverage, be it the laundry, the valet and so forth, other than the rooms. But typically what we have been used to in the past, it's morning meetings cover the RevPAR, ADR, comp set, occupancy. F&B gets a very little attention, if any, same with the wellness and the spa. And I think the word maturity here and the audience is really changing and pushing that mindset and the shift moving forward. And by that I mean that the owners today are getting involved in the business. If not themselves, it's through asset managers who are starting to apply a lot of pressure on operators saying, what about this space? Why aren't we generating revenues in these revenues? Equally as important for me, I think, the tone of voice, the communication channels, each of these disciplines, the rooms, the food and beverage, the wellness, we have different channels. And the way we communicate, it's very different. Previously, when we stayed in a hotel, you went down to the concierge and said, where can I eat? 80% of the time you left the hotel to a local restaurant. And that the mindset has changed now. People don't want to. If you have the right brand in-house, if you have the right vibe, if you have the right offering, people are coming back from the outside into the hotels. If the value is right, if the business proposition is right, the service component's right. And the authenticity, I think, is also very important, making sure that the experience is engaging and innovative.
Have restaurants become more reliant on the local community during COVID with the drop in tourists in the hotels?
Look, 100%, we had to. A lot of the restaurants did that by force rather than choice. There was no hotel guests as such. So but again, those who were operated by the hotels themselves took a lot longer to shift. The mindset, the manning, the headcount, the pricing, the percentages of food cost, beverage cost, was all controlled by the financial controller and the GM. So in order to make that shift, a lot of them took a longer period in order to adjust and make it to those independent who are running businesses and have an understanding of how nimble approach moves and fast.
Do you think that's a taste for the future as well? That restaurants within hotels now see the opportunity of targeting more the local community rather than, focusing on the guests in the hotels themselves?
I think a dining room or a bar or a spa, as a matter of fact, should be catering for both. I don't think you should be heavily relying on either or. As a matter of fact, if your dining room in a hotel is full of locals, and if you are staying in that hotel, you wouldn't leave the hotel. You'd want to stay in that space. If it's vibrant, if it's noisy and good food and represents value, you wouldn't actually leave the space. You would stay and you'd say, I want to be part of this and I want to engage and enjoy it.
Okay. There's one interesting combination as well between co-working space and F&B. And obviously, Marloes, I think you have a co-working concept. how does that fit with the F&B and the local community and still integrates within the hotel?
Well, we call ours a service office or a business club, so we're really kind of targeting a more mature audience versus where often when you say co-working, it kind of, people get this idea of everybody who sits in a coffee shop or this kind of younger generation. But I think the whole local or international or the type of visitors, I think it's creating this ecosystem. And, you know, we're all talking about, you know, we're talking about our building or just beyond, you know, you're talking about just getting everything wider. And then you have, you know, if my interest is wellness, you know, it's all of a sudden people hear something about wellness and we just go like, okay, we need somebody. And then it's, you know, it's, okay, COVID is there, so now we need to do something with our F&B. We already had to do something with our F&B before COVID. It was like a challenge already to drive everybody. So I think it's, you know, the spaces and the use of space, even when you talk about a surface floor, we took our meeting floor out of Jeddah, when you look at the drawings, 4 years ago. Nobody was looking at it at that time. We were just told we're crazy. Well, if you look at the occupancies of meeting floors, it's ridiculous. But not because, you know, people are not putting in the effort to fill them, etc. But the consumer wants something different. And I think where, you know, if we talk about revenue generation, or I come back to my first point, any of this only works if we work together. If we really, you know, instead of saying, oh, the operator doesn't know, oh, the owner makes it so complicated, and you know, it's really like, how do we say, okay, this is the space I have, I can't make it perfect, because 7,000 other reasons, or I can make it perfect. I have the money or I don't have the money. There's so many different things that you can do to then integrate. And to your point on working spaces, you know, if everybody said tomorrow, let's convert our meeting room to workspace, it's not going to work. But even Sebastian said yesterday in his interview, all of a sudden in urban locations, they have people using the hotel, not the rooms, but the hotel to work, because they go crazy at home because there's not enough space for everybody to be on Zoom the whole day. Yeah, I think it's kind of looking at every single project and see what the requirements are. And it's, you know, everything needs something different. And I think these collaborations between, and this kind of endless he did, she did, etc. If we can reduce a bit of that, I mean, Jerry was saying about the CEOs of the Giga projects working together. Sebastian was talking about Chris Nacetta. You know, you wouldn't have heard this 2 years ago. When we talked about collaborations, people would just go, no. And I think if we could really work on that much more, we could create a better consumer experience. We could be much more agile, to use the word, and continue to change. Because even if we all have a co-working space now, an amazing wellness, etc., in 3-4 years we'll be sitting here one more time discussing about, you know, the newest, the next generation, etc.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're seeing that openness from both sides, the owner side and the operator side, and the expert operators, specialized operators as well, that they want to work together. Because I think in the past, if we look 10 years ago, for example, operators typically wanted that whole envelope for themselves. But I think they see now that benefit of having the various elements, because it does improve the overall guest experience. And I think, you know, we were talking yesterday or day before about the guest experience index, guest rating index, which every brand is, you know, trying to achieve the highest maximum score. One more thing in terms of, you know, all these different components working together. At the end of the day, it's all about real estate. And Anil, obviously, as an owner, you're owner of real estate at the end of the day. You have a lot of upcoming projects and then some existing projects as well. On the existing projects that you have, operational assets, are you rethinking, repurposing, redeveloping spaces now with all these new concepts in mind, or are you purely looking at the future on new assets?
Okay, you've got to take it, Christopher, stage by stage. First of all, try and do a good job with what you have. That is the first challenge. I'll be very honest, okay? So if you already have a restaurant, for example, it has a certain cuisine, It has its certain decor and kitchen size, etc. The important thing first to realize is it doing well within its peers in town? If it is not, and invariably that is the case, then you need to ship up first and find out what are the missing elements here that we are not able to do as well as some of the other peers in the same sphere. I think we are at that kind of a stage right now. Okay, there is a lot of learning that is taking place. Operators, the big boys of the world, were never really perfect in the F&B side of things, and anything non-room side. That's a fairly general statement. There could be specific exemptions, and it's important for us to first step up there. So one of the evolution that happened was the point I made earlier. If something is not doing that well, bring in a specialist. A franchise, for example, maybe, okay? They bring their own skill sets, and we realized we did that over the last 3, 4, 5 years, even before COVID, and we've seen the difference. So that is the first stage. Now, we have to also remember that all concepts now are no longer valid forever. Those days are gone. You better have a shorter paybacks. Otherwise, every concept literally tends to die in, 3, 5, 7 years at the max. So you spend your money accordingly, you try to milk the cow as fast as you can, if I may use that word. Otherwise, it's going to be a dead boat. So it's an evolution process, and I think we've started taking some steps. There can be other changes coming through, and when you come to conferences like this, there are all kinds of ideas being generated, and you're thinking, eventually it's all about dirham per square foot. It has to make sense.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're running out of time, so last question for Naim. Are you seeing a lot of repurposing, owners coming to you with existing restaurants that are not working and wanting to repurpose them?
I think it's only natural. The cycle keeps on moving, progressing. I don't think it's all about changing. I think it's about refining, fine-tuning, and going to the next level, keeping in mind that the audience is changing, the habits are changing, spending patterns are changing. So I think the evolution will continue, but what's very important for me to make all of these disciplines work, including the ownership, is the purpose has to be extremely well defined. Otherwise, we'll all start dashing in different directions, and the business itself will struggle. So purpose definition needs to be very clear, very transparent, and often reinforced in order to make sure that we all stay on track.
Thank you very much. So I think we all look forward to seeing soon a hotel owned by Anil, operated by Marloes, with a beautiful spa by Kathryn, and an amazing F&B experience by Naim.
No
Thank you very
pressure,
much.
Anil.
Thank you.
Thank you.